Hi, it's Chris Grimm, and this is Deep Work Fast. And today I want to talk with you about what happens when we move from being appropriately assertive and direct to what could be perceived or be very real and experienced as aggression, anger, etc. Things that might feel unpleasant to the people on the receiving end might actually feel unpleasant to you too. So I want to talk about first of all why this matters so much, and specifically I want to speak to everyone, not just the people who might be already thinking that you yourself, or other people might be saying that you have an anger problem. There are definitely people we coach who have a problem controlling anger and intense emotions and get hijacked by those. That's not what I'm talking about this week. I'm talking about the normal things that happen. So maybe not a problem, but just when we are upset, resentful, angry, maybe harboring issues that are unresolved from the past, this could be at home or at work, and then something happens, and because that moment in time, you might be stressed out, fatigued, maybe you haven't slept, maybe you're hungover. I hope that's not the case, but it happens. I've seen it happen. Again, work and home. And then we don't have as intentional and focused ability to control ourselves. And so what happens is that we overreact or we push into aggressive behavior that's unnecessary for whatever is happening. And like I said, that sometimes that is very, very real and observed and expressed. And sometimes it's just perceived, right? Like you might not know that you crossed the line, but the other people or person experienced it that way. And I'm talking about this because it was something I teach to people all the time. And it was originally introduced as a team tool: forming, storming, norming, performing. It's called the Tuckman model. It's been around since forever. But I like to use it in any relationship. So it doesn't have to be a team. It could be any time that you need to norm or have habitual, regular interactions with a person or with a group of people. And again, that's at home and work. Human is human, and we have to interact with each other. So what happens is in the beginning of those relationships, which is called the forming stage, most likely we're not showing our whole self and we're able to be politically correct or extra nice until we have to storm. And so the concept of storming, I just want you to understand, doesn't have to be a big volatile fight. Or a big disagreement. Sometimes it starts simply, specifically when we're first getting to know people. It's just the moments in time where we don't naturally agree. Maybe we have different information or data about a situation or a thing. And then all of a sudden there's a moment, right, where there's potential friction, or we can maybe politely and appropriately work that out. But sooner or later, the storming is required. Otherwise, our relationships would stay super shallow. And we can't have that at home and work, right? We actually need to cooperate and have a life together and work together. And so the reason I'm doing this today is because I want you to understand that we norm or create subconscious and sometimes conscious, but both, right? Ways of dealing with a person or a group of people. That's called norming. It's when we adopt a set of interaction behaviors that we hope can be a habitual pattern, specifically if you know you're going to be with those people all the time. And because we're habitual animals, by the way, that's the way we function. If you haven't been on this earth for a long time, which I'm assuming you have, we are those people. We are animals that are habitual. We have patterns, we cycles, we do all over. That's what actually makes a relationship, by the way, right? Is that we're going to interact with you all the time. Intimate relationships, work relationships, shallow relationships, doesn't matter. If we think we're going to do something with that person over and over again, a pattern's going to develop, and it's called norming. So we norm usually more through the storming than in the nice moments. Because when things are going good, we don't probably have to think about the interactions. They feel easy, and that's fantastic. But life if we're going to have life with people and work with people and we have to solve problems or make decisions, most likely it can't stay neutral or nice all the time. We actually have to potentially disagree or at least hear someone's perspective that might not be the same as yours. And so that's actually the moments in time that we norm the most, because those experiences, when it's not completely in alignment, when it doesn't feel easy, we as an animal have to do something, have to decide, and oftentimes it's pretty unconscious about whether we feel threatened or not and how we're going to behave. And then if you think about work, well, at work, there tends to be rules, or at least we have perceived rules, even if we didn't sign up for protocols. But I mean, employee handbooks, orientation, etc. Usually the workplace tells us how we can behave and how we can't behave. And if we do the things outside those lines, we're not doing it right. So this is all really important for you to understand, because this all matters in the moments where we're not at our best, potentially, like I said, fatigued, stressed, overworked, whatever's going on. All of those conditions that you might be having in your body and outside of your body provide an opportunity in some moments for you to either be in control and appropriately direct and assertive. And like I said, sometimes we have oops moments where we cross that line. So I want to address that in two ways. I want to say, first of all, let's talk about how you recover from that, because it might not be as obvious as you think. And the second thing I want to talk about really quickly in a few minutes is how to prevent yourself from crossing the line too much, or in very specific, important moments when it's not going to be helpful and it could be damaging, because we don't need damage in our relationships when we need to live with people or work with people. Okay, recovery. So if you've crossed the line, if you've had an oops, we all have done it. We've sent that snarky email. We've made cynical comments. We've been in meetings before where maybe we realized we were presenting information and we were technically, like, maybe we were on purpose throwing someone under the bus. I hope you don't do that. But sometimes we don't realize it until we're already in, when our intention was just to prove that we were right. Or, like I said, maybe we're upset because another group or another person is doing things and it's not helping you. And so you're worked up about it and you say and you do things, and later you go, I shouldn't have done that. That was not being my best. I crossed the line. And the other people maybe perceived it as, like I said, aggressive or angry or inappropriate or unpleasant. All of that happens. So to recover, the number one way to do this, and I'm always fascinated in coaching to hear how underutilized this technique is. And it's very simple. It's saying the words, I am sorry. Now, psychologically, in the science that is called neuro-linguistic programming, it means that the words we use matter, because neurologically and in our brain, really, like, we hear certain words and it triggers certain understandings and feelings, because we're programmed. We program ourselves. Culture programs us. So we believe certain things. And by the way, I'm going to talk in a few minutes, because people from different cultures and who speak different languages maybe than you do probably have a different way of expressing when they want to say they're sorry, or what they need to hear to know that you are sorry. So let's come back to this. The reason I'm saying the words, I'm sorry, I am sorry, however you want to do it, is important, is that, like I said, depending on the home someone grew up in or the culture, the way you apologize matter. Now, many people, I've been coaching a long time. So I've had lots of these situations played back to me, both good and bad. Cringy, bad, train wrecks. I've heard it all. And what I hear a lot is that some people don't apologize genuinely or well. So instead, it might sound like this: my bad. For most people, that's not the right way to apologize. So it doesn't actually resolve the issue, right? It doesn't sound like you're genuine. It doesn't sound like you mean what you're saying. And maybe you don't, by the way, because maybe you're kind of flippant about it. Maybe you didn't mean to hurt their feelings or be aggressive. And maybe you don't even think they should have their feelings hurt or should feel bad, but they do. And so people use words. I've actually watched this and had to intervene in some situations where people said things like, well, I didn't mean to do it. And they thought that was the apology. The other people did not experience as the apology. So sometimes I'm like, nope, stop, time out. Like, you actually need to say you're sorry to that person. And then it gets us to the point where you have to actually decide, can you genuinely say you are sorry? That's the other part of recovering from these situations is you have to be able to be authentic and genuine for this to be the cleanup that is necessary for the relationship to work, for the relationship to be trusting, for the relationship to have the right balance in it, for you to do things together and make decisions together. And so when our apology doesn't land because we're not using the right words, and maybe we actually don't mean it, well, it's a waste of everyone's time and effort, and it may actually make the situation worse. So what I'm saying is to recover is use the most simple, most appropriate words. I'm sorry is usually that. And if you can't apologize for what you said, at least apologize for how you delivered it. So when I'm in situations where the conflict is very, very long and the relationships are broken and there's a lot of damage, and I'm coaching people, I'm like, stop. So, first, can you be genuine, authentic, and just apologize for the delivery? And that sounds like this. I'm sorry I raised my voice. I was really, really angry in that meeting because it was obvious to me, or at least in the moment it felt obvious to me, that you and other people hadn't read the documents that I sent to everyone as pre-work. And so I was mad. I was angry because I thought this was as urgent and important to all of us, not just me. And I worked super hard on that pre-work and sent all of you those PowerPoints that no one opened. Then we get in the room and I see that no one's read anything. And so no one else is actually ready to have the conversation that we desperately need to have right now. And of course, it impacts me and my job and my team and our goals. And so I was mad. And I shouldn't have raised my voice and I shouldn't have said what I said. But I am still actually super disappointed. Everybody, watch what I'm doing right now. I am apologizing for the delivery, but maybe I'm not going to apologize for the why and what because I'm still upset about it. I'm disappointed. I need the other people to do something different. So you can still recover. This is authentic. I hope that you're tracking with me right now in Deep Work Fast because this is deep work very, very quickly. I'm teaching you something that sometimes it takes me months to teach executives, their teams, and of course in their personal lives. By the way, conflict in our homes is often happening at a micro level because it's about tone of voice. It's about body language, right? Like, think about that. There's a whole bunch of ways that, again, it always looks and feels or could look and feel to other people that we've crossed the line from direct and assertive to aggressive when whether we sometimes didn't do it on purpose or not. So your awareness around this is very, very important. So beyond the recovery, I want to talk a little bit about prevention because I do think that it is important that you are aware of this. And the awareness has some pieces to it. It is you being aware and then being able to regulate yourself. This is a part of emotional intelligence training, but I'm using it very specifically here because it works when you do it, right? So being self-aware, first about your tone, what triggers usually happen that take you over the line from assertive and direct to aggressiveness, perceived aggressiveness or real aggressiveness. And so let me just talk about that. I'm sure you've all experienced it. I want you to think of yourself first, not just what you've experienced with other people, right? But assertive and appropriately direct means that I'm not emotionally charged. I might be passionate. I might feel like this is super important. So I'm bringing a lot of energy to it, but I'm not projecting angry, intense energy at the other people with my words, with my body language, right? You've all, I'm sure, been in situations in your home and at work where someone was projecting all of it out. And maybe that means direct insults or pointing their finger or leaning in and speaking super intensely to someone because they're really, really angry and upset at that person. So when we're assertive and appropriately direct, that means we're not doing that. Our words are expressing ourselves authentically and respectfully to the other people without projecting blame, anger, and all those emotions like bleh, all over everyone, which is usually where the problems happen. So, back what I was saying, to prevent that, you need to be super self aware. You need to know what triggers, what people and topics usually get you to that line where you know if something is said or something happens, you potentially are going to cross that. You're going to get angry. You're going to feel anger in your body, and you may or may not be able to control it before stuff comes out of your mouth, or you slam the door, or you send the email, or whatever it is. So your self-awareness is important. The second piece is your self-regulation. That means knowing how to control yourself, because life is going to happen and you are going to have moments where you're too tired, you're too stressed, or you're caught off guard by a person or a thing that you're already upset about and it's just going to blow. It happens. We're human. And so to prevent that, you've got to know it. And then you have to have some tools in your kit, whether that's breathing, whether that is excusing yourself from the room appropriately to go to the restroom or do something else so you can cool down before you say and do things that you don't want. The last thing around preventativeness that I want to talk to you about, I mentioned earlier, which is if you are, and more important people are on global teams in organizations that have many, many people who English is their second language. So I'm speaking to the people, all of us, right? Is that if you are with people who are from, forget English, if you're with people whose primary natural language and culture is not the same as yours, then you need to do some work to make sure you understand what is assertive and aggressive in the culture and how is it expressed in the language and culture that they're from, so that you know what could potentially be perceived as disrespectful or overly aggressive when for you it might feel normal. And it's important that they know your version of that story too. Specifically, if you're going to live with people and work with people, you should have proactive conversations about it before the problems. So, in many corporate settings, what I'm seeing on global teams, specifically now that we have more and more distributed teams where people aren't all moving and working in a co-located workspace, so they're not spending time together all the time socially or even in meetings, etc., is that we're missing a lot of those cues, right? We're not actually understanding before there are problems what could be perceived as disrespectful, aggressive, overly assertive, inappropriate to the other people around you. So, as a preventative measure, I would just suggest to you. And by the way, if you're going to marry someone, date people who are also not from the same culture as you, and I say to everybody all the time, our families alone gave us the socialization and the culture of conflict, assertiveness, etc. And so just because we're coming from different homes and backgrounds and upbringings really should be a fundamental ground rule for us to actually proactively talk about and make agreements about all of these things. Don't assume it. And even if you're the boss or a parent or you're in charge of a company or whatever in your life, the last thing I want to say is that um, with all the stressors and fear-based stuff we have going on in the world, more and more people are just more naturally agitated, unfortunately, all the stress and anxiety, right? Like we're just hearing about all of these things, and it's very, very true. So people aren't operating from a state of calm. And so we are ripe, everybody, for more and more people crossing the line that I'm talking about, like thinking I'm just being direct and assertive, but the other people are going, whoa, like that's a lot. Um, and or like I said, people are just more sensitive, and so they are experiencing things that maybe in the past didn't feel like a big deal, but they are interpreting it as, like I said, unpleasant, disrespectful, and aggressive. So I say 20 minutes or less. I hit the 20-minute mark, so I'm over time. I'm going to send you back into your day and say thank you for being with me every Wednesday for Deep Work Fast. And if you haven't already done it, check out the blog on this topic. It has everything that I just reviewed and more to help you recover and prevent yourself from having damage in any of your relationships. I want you to be at your best at work and at home. So I'll see you next week. This is Chris Grimm. See ya.